ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome to our 3-day lecture series on the story of Gajendra. So in the next 3 sessions we will be discussing about the glorious story of Gajendra as described in the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami talks about the various manvantras in this current day of Brahma. So the day of Brahma has 1000 Divya Yugas. And one Divya Yuga means a combination of 4 yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and Kali Yuga. All these 4 yugas put together would form one Divya Yuga, and this is also called Chatur Yuga. So, like that, 1000 Chatur Yugas form one day of Brahma, and in this one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manvantaras. Manvantara is the reign of a Manu, and Manu is the progenitor of mankind, and Manu is the main personality who oversees the operations during a Manvantara. So the reign of a Manu is called Manvantara, means a Manu rules this universe, this material universe, for about 71 Divya Yugas. 1000 Divya Yugas divided by 14 Manus. So total 71 to 72, 71.25 Divya Yugas are there during the reign of one Manvantara, one Manu. So now Sukadeva Goswami starts describing the 14 Manvantaras in the current day of Brahma. Already 6 Manvantaras have passed, and we are in the 7th Manvantara called Vaivasvat Manvantara. And in the future, there are 7 more Manvantaras in the current day of Brahma. So during the 4th Manvantara, the Supreme Lord Hari has protected a great elephant called Gajendra from the jaws of a crocodile. So that is the story. So Sukadeva Goswami became very eager to hear about the story of Gajendra. So how did the Supreme Lord Hari come and protect Gajendra from this crocodile? So I want to know that story in great detail, my dear Sukadeva Goswami. In this way, Parikshit Maharaj requested Sukadeva Goswami. So Sukadeva Goswami started narrating the pastime of how Lord Hari protected Gajendra. It's a very interesting pastime. Actually, Gajendra was a great king and a great devotee named Indradyumna Maharaj in his previous life. So we will discuss about the past life of Gajendra on the 3rd day. So in this first day, we will discuss the life of Gajendra as an elephant, as the king of all elephants. Gaja is elephant, Indra is a king. So Gajendra is the king of all elephants. So now this Gajendra was very powerful. Sukadeva Goswami describes in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Gajendra was living in a mountain range called Trikuta mountain range, and that's a celestial place where it is accessible to the denizens of heavenly planets. So this Trikuta mountain region is surrounded by a milk ocean, and the height of that Trikuta mountain region is 10,000 yojanas. One yojana is 8 miles. So like that, 10,000 yojanas is the height and the length and the breadth of this Trikuta mountain region. So it is called Trikuta because it has 3 peaks. There are 3 principal peaks. Of course, this mountain range has so many peaks, but there are 3 principal peaks, and these 3 principal peaks are made of iron, silver, and gold. So these beautiful peaks actually beautified the sky. So there are other peaks also that are made of jewels, minerals, and decorated with very nice flowering fruit bearing trees, and the whole ambience is filled with very nice creepers, shrubs, waterfalls, and the waterfalls and other water bodies and lakes which are there in that mountain region were making such pleasant sound vibration. Just imagine just staying close to a water reservoir, mm, and some cool breezes are passing, and you get to hear the sounds of those waterfalls and the movements of the ripples of water because of this air wind movement. So that's very pleasant sound vibration, and all this nice ambience is increasing the beauty of that mountain region. And also the mountain region, this Trikuta mountain, is surrounded by milk ocean. So now we know in our earthly planet there is only salt ocean. Okay, we don't have access to milk ocean, yogurt ocean, honey ocean, etc. But in the celestial regions there are multiple such oceans according to the information given to us by Srimad Bhagavatam. And there are such sweet chirping birds in the Trikuta mountain region. So now in the material world, although this Trikuta mountain region is there in some upper planetary systems, still those upper planetary systems are also there in the material world only. In this material universe there are 14 planetary systems, and we are in the middle one called Bhumandala, Bhuloka. Above Bhuloka there are 6 more planetary systems: Bhuvarloka, Svarloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, Satyaloka. And below this Bhuloka there are 7 more planetary systems: Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Talatala, Mahatala, Patala. So like that there are 14 planetary systems. So the lower planetary systems are quite dark, and upper planetary systems are very bright, and there is more lifespan there in the upper planetary systems. And also there the amount of suffering that people experience is quite less. However, birth, death, old age, disease is there in all these planets. Brahma Bhavana Loka. So right from the planet of Brahma to this earthly planet, there is a lot of suffering. There is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi. There is birth, there is death, there is old age, and there is disease. So there are birds, there are water bodies, there are trees, there are plants, there are human beings in all the 14 planetary systems. But in the upper planetary systems, the beauty of the people there, women there, trees there, and birds there is much higher than the beauty that is available in this material realm. So we need to understand that whatever may be the amount of beauty in this material world, whether in the lower planets or the upper planets, that beauty is temporary. In contrast to this temporary beauty in this material realm, in whichever planet, there is permanent spiritual beauty, eternal beauty in the spiritual world, Vaikuntha. So we have just discussed about the beautiful ambience of this Trikuta mountain region. But there is similar beautiful ambience in the Vaikuntha also, but that is permanent, while this is temporary. So we discussed about birds, sweet singing birds, but it is also mentioned that because these sweet singing birds are making such nice vibrations, in response to these vibrations, lions roar with pride and envy. Okay, and the natural sounds also inspire people in that region to engage in sense enjoyment. So now in this material world there is envy even amongst animals and of course human beings. And in this material world, any pleasant ambience, surroundings will induce a desire to enjoy an essential plane in human beings. But the spiritual world is also filled with much better variegatedness, but there is no envy and there is no desire for sense enjoyment. So the material world is characterized by desire for sense enjoyment and envy, while the spiritual world is characterized with non-enviousness, and desire to serve the Supreme Lord only, nothing else. So now let's discuss a little bit about Vaikuntha in this context. Paravatanyadhritasarasachakravaka datyuha hamsa sukatiptiribarhinamya कोलाहलो विरमते चिरमात्रमुच्चैर्भृङ्गाधिपे हरिकथाम् इव गायमाने Paravатanya Bhritasarasa Chakravaka. These are all the names of the birds in Vaikuntha. Paravata Anya Bhrita Sarasa Chakravaka Datyuha. Hamsa means swan. Shuka parrot. Tittiri Barhinamya. But he is peacock. So some of their names of these birds do not have English equivalent names. So Kolahalo Virabate Chiramatramuchair. Kolahala. So these sweet singing birds, beautiful birds with very nice enchanting feathers, they are singing so nicely. They are singing the glories of the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha. But these sweet singing birds give a pause to their own singing when a bumblebee comes there to sing the glories of Lord Hari. So a bumblebee makes a sound like that. Sometimes it could even be irritating also at times. But in Vaikuntha, this sound of bumblebee also is a glorification of Lord Hari. Bhringadhipe Harikatham Ivagayamane. So Harikatham Ivagayamane, this sound made by this bumblebee resembles Harikatha. Just because this bumblebee is trying to glorify Lord Hari, all the sweet singing birds take a low profile and encourage this bird, encourage this bumblebee to glorify Lord Hari. So there is no envy. So none of these birds were saying that we are more beautiful than you, O bumblebee. We can sing much better than you, O bumblebee. And your singing resembles Harikatha. It's not exactly Harikatha as such. But we can sing with our sweet voices. We have such beautiful feathers. We have such beautiful forms. But none of the birds are in a mood to compete with bumblebee. But they are only in a mood to encourage bumblebee to glorify the Lord. So, in essence, there is a lot of beauty in the material world. There is much better beauty in the spiritual world. So beauty is there in the spiritual world, beauty is there in the material world also. But the beauty in the material world induces people to enjoy an essential plane. And the beauty in the spiritual world induces people to glorify the Supreme Lord and serve and worship the Supreme Lord. So just like even bumblebees and plants also want to glorify the Lord. And in this Trikuta mountain region, so many heavenly damsels come, demigods and demigoddesses would come, the devatas would come, and they are inspired to engage in sensual activities. So that's how Trikuta mountain region is so so exciting from a material perspective. So all this is a description given by our Sukadeva Goswami about the Trikuta mountain region, into which Gajendra is making his entry at this point. So the Trikuta mountain region is filled with valleys, jungle animals were there, trees were there, gardens, and the birds were sweetly singing, and there were lakes and there were rivers, and the beaches were covered with gems. There were grains of sand on the banks of the rivers and lakes were actually gems. They are not sand particles, they were gems, right? So there is crystal clear water, and the demi-goddesses would go and bathe in those waters, and the waters become fragrant because of the naturally fragrant bodies of these demi-goddesses, right? So in this way, the Supreme Lord's creation is filled with all kinds of wonders. Milk ocean is a wonder. All the devatas and their fragrant bodies is a wonder. And sand particles which resemble like gems and Vaidurya stones, diamonds is like is a wonder. So all these wonders are there in the Supreme Lord's creation. So now in the Trikuta mountain region, there is a beautiful garden called Rutumat garden. and this Ritumat garden belongs to a great Devata named Varuna. He is also a devotee. And this Ritumat garden, so we are discussing the place where Gajendra is entering now. So Trikota mountain region, and there is Ritumat garden in that mountain region. So in that Ritumat garden, there are very nice sporting places for the heavenly damsels. Again, there are nice flower bearing trees, fruit bearing trees, and nice lakes and birds and animals. All this variegatedness is definitely given. So into such a sweet, enchanting atmosphere, Gajendra entered along with so many other elephants. Gajendra was accompanied by so many elephants, some female elephants, some are his children, and some are his friends. So Gajendra is like king of all elephants. So Gajendra is just entering this ambience of Ritumat garden. So here we need to learn an important lesson, that Gajendra is exactly behaving like an elephant. Actually, Gajendra was not an elephant. Gajendra is entrapped in an elephant body. So the soul is neither elephant, nor dog, nor cat, nor human being, nor demigod. So in the previous life, this Gajendra, this elephant, was a king named Indradyumna Maharaj. In the previous life, he was something else. So now that Indradyumna Maharaj was a great devotee, somehow he entered into the body of an elephant. So now this Gajendra, he has become Gajendra. This Gajendra is thinking that I am this body. The nature of Maya, the nature of the illusory energy of the Lord, the nature of this material existence is that it induces us to identify with our body. And it induces in us a tendency to forget everything except that identity with that body. Okay. So Gajendra is thinking that I am an elephant. I am the king of elephants. I am the most powerful animal in this entire forest, this jungle. And this Gajendra is actually so powerful that it can destroy the bodies and the lives of other forest animals. And all the other forest animals were actually maintaining their lives because Gajendra was kind towards them and not harming them. If Gajendra wants, Gajendra can harm all these animals also. So Gajendra had absolutely no remembrance of his past identity or past life as a king. Okay. So why people don't remember their past lives? People think that I am this body and everything that belongs to this body or everything that is connected to this body is mine, right? So the ego clings so strongly to all this bodily paraphernalia that all things from our past life are forgotten. Okay. So to the degree one starts identifying oneself with one's temporary designations or bodies, to that degree people don't have remembrances of their past original identities as servants of God. Okay. So now Gajendra was wandering with female elephants. So elephant is known to be very much addicted to sex life. So Gajendra was wandering with so many female elephants. Sometimes in the forest, some hunters trap elephants. How do they trap? First they trap a female elephant and somehow bring the female elephant under their control, and they show this female elephant to allure a male elephant. And this male elephant starts running behind this female elephant, and these people who wanted to catch that elephant would actually dig a big ditch and cover the ditch with some twigs and some leaves and branches, so that the elephant thinks that it's not a ditch, it's just a land. And because the elephant's focus is on the female elephant, this elephant will start running behind the female elephant and then fall into this ditch, and thus the elephant is entrapped. So in this way, this Gajendra, these elephants are quite interested to associate with the opposite gender, and they are very much addicted to this sense of touch. So Gajendra was thoroughly convinced that he was an elephant. So he had no other identity. And Gajendra was happily enjoying with so many female elephants. And it seems that everything was right there in his life. There is absolutely no difficulty. Gajendra was so happy in its identity as an elephant, with his friends, with his family, with the jungle, with so many other forest animals surrendering to him or submitting to him, being obedient to him. Everyone respected him. He was unparalleled king of that forest, right? So this is what a general materialist would aspire. An average materialistic person wants a loving company, loving association, and some kind of influence and prestige and respect and social respect and all this. And all this Gajendra had. Just that Gajendra was an animal, and like these materialistic people are human beings. So, but Gajendra's story teaches us a very important lesson. We may be absorbed in our temporary material identities, and we may be very comfortable in that situation also, but at the least expected moment, there is a calamity in our life. At the least expected moment, there could be some disaster that can threaten our identities, our comforts, and our influence, and our name, fame, prestige, and power, influence, everything, right? Whoever one may be. So, apparently, seeing that Gajendra is in a very comfortable situation, but an unexpected calamity came in his life that we are going to see in just few minutes. Gajendra had such power. Gajendra broke so many plants as Gajendra was just walking along with the herd of other elephants. Gajendra broke so many plants and then pulled out so many creepers from the trees, and thickets and trees were not an obstacle for Gajendra, not caring for even piercing thorns on the land. Gajendra was walking. What will these simple thorns do to the huge body of this celestial elephant? So Gajendra was so influential that simply by catching the scent of Gajendra, all the other forest animals started fleeing in fear. Oh, Gajendra is coming this side. We have to survive. We have to maintain our lives. If Gajendra comes, we don't know what Gajendra is going to do, and all the animals will just run away from there. So Gajendra was exactly living like a materialistic person, and he had a so-called ideal life in every possible way. He was quite proud of his power and reputation and ability to control things. So this controllership mentality is very much ingrained in the hearts of common people. Now, if you see, many of you must be knowing this pastime. At this stage, Gajendra was looking like controller. And after a while, when the crocodile catches the leg of Gajendra, crocodile seemed to be the controller, not Gajendra. And after 1,000 years of struggle and fight with this crocodile, neither crocodile was the controller nor Gajendra was the controller. The Supreme Lord Vishnu, who came to protect Gajendra, was the real controller. So, as all of you know the story, at the end of this 1,000 years of struggle of Gajendra, fight of Gajendra with this crocodile, the Supreme Lord Vishnu comes on his Garuda carrier and then beheads this Gajendra, beheads this crocodile. So then crocodile's controllership is gone, and this elephant's controllership was gone long back, 1,000 years back only. So Krishna is the supreme controller, we are not the controllers. So at this stage, in this current stage of Gajendra's life, Gajendra was having a great sense of controllership. By his mercy, animals like foxes and many other smaller animals were loitering elsewhere without his fear. If Gajendra wants, he can attack them and then kill them also. He is so powerful. And Gajendra was surrounded by so many elephants, and Gajendra drank some honey, and Gajendra smelled the dust from the lotuses in the lake. In the Ritumat garden that we discussed some time back, there was a nice, there were nice lotus flowers, and Gajendra smelled the fragrance of all this lotus and the pollen, and Gajendra was intoxicated. Gajendra drank honey also, and Gajendra entered this lake just to recreate. It's like a vacation time for Gajendra. Gajendra was already intoxicated. Gajendra entered the lake and bathed thoroughly and relieved himself of all fatigue. And Gajendra was also relieving his uh, family members from fatigue. So Gajendra would just put his trunk, elephant trunk, in the water and then squeeze water and start splashing that water on his baby elephants and the female elephants. So Gajendra drank water and he mixed the dust of lotus flowers and water lilies into that water, and then he drank that water and he started splashing that water and bathed so thoroughly. So Gajendra is just representing the mentality of an average householder who is influenced by Maya, who has no devotional inclinations. Sapushkarenodhatasikaraambubher निपाययन् संस्नपयन् यथा गृही गृह्णीकरेणुः करभांश्चतुर्मदो नाचष्टकृच्छ्रं कृपणो जमायया सपुष्करेणोद्धृतशीकराम्बुभिर्. So our Sukadeva Goswami talks in this nice shloka that Gajendra was behaving like a human being who lacks spiritual knowledge and who has undue, unreasonable attachment to the members of his family. And Gajendra was illusioned by the Maya or the external energy of the Supreme Lord Krishna, and he's just enjoying with his children and family members without expecting that there could be an attack on him, right? Indeed, he raised the water, and in fact, just squeezing that water from with his trunk and then throwing it on all the other elephants continuously would take some effort, would take some hard labor. But because Gajendra was so attached to all these elephants, his family members and friends and wives and children, he did not even recognize the hard labor involved in this endeavor. So, in this context, Srila Prabhupada comments on this shloka that even an attached materialistic person also doesn't recognize the hard labor in working for sense gratification, personal sense gratification and extended sense gratification. Of course, it's a responsibility of a dharmic householder to earn money and to put some efforts to earn that money and to responsibly maintain his family members and children and other relatives. There is no doubt about that. One should not avoid one's responsibilities. That's what we see in the examples of several pure devotees also, like Yudhishthir Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj. All of them had maintained their families in an exemplary way. But here is a criticism of those people who are absorbed in the maintenance of their body and bodily relationships without taking much interest in spiritual activities, right? So Gajendra was absorbed in his activities as an elephant, so bodily identity as an elephant, too much of attachment to his family members, and complete ignorance of the upcoming impediment. At the least expected moment, there could be calamity in this material world. This material world is characterized by such symptoms. So there is unexpected calamity at any moment. So inspired by the providence, here Sukadeva Goswami uses very choicest words, Daiva Chodito, as if arranged by the providence, inspired by the providence. A strong crocodile, very angry, came and attacked the leg of Gajendra. So Gajendra was happily playing in the waters with his family members. Somehow this crocodile came and then caught his leg. Gajendra tried his best to get free from this danger. And again Sukadeva Goswami says, Yadrichaya means sent by providence or arranged by superior powers. Like we have no control over situations. So there are three kinds of calamities. Number one, Adhyatmika. The calamities are the miseries that are caused by our own body and mind. Second is Adhibhautika, means the miseries or the calamities caused by natural disasters, right? Or not natural disasters. Adhibhautika is other people start creating problems in our lives, and Adhidevika means natural disasters. So now we experience difficulties or miseries because of our own body and mind. We experience difficulties because of other people, and we also experience miseries because of some supernatural powers and natural calamities. So Gajendra did not expect that there could be some calamity in life. Suddenly, by the will of providence, another living entity, crocodile, came and caught his leg. Now somebody may be just happily living a very healthy life. Suddenly he catches some virus. Right? A mosquito comes and bites this person, and he might get a malaria. He might get some virus, and that virus, he could catch that virus just by someone's cuff, right? So in this material world, now in Gajendra's life there was this crocodile that caused trouble to Gajendra. But in this material world, we could, even a mosquito can act like a crocodile in our lives, right? Even someone's cough that can spread some virus can act like a crocodile in our lives. So Gajendra tried his best to release himself from the crocodile's jaws, but Gajendra could not. Although we have discussed for a long time in the first half of this chapter, in this session, that Gajendra was very powerful. He can defeat even all the other forest animals there, and he is so powerful, but he could not defeat crocodile. Why? The reason is that crocodile was a water animal. Crocodile has a lot of power within the water, and Gajendra was a land animal. He has a lot of power on the earth. So a person may be very powerful, but no person can be powerful at all times, at all places. Right? Gajendra is powerful on the land till now, but now time is more in favor of crocodile than Gajendra. So now at this time Gajendra cannot exhibit his power, and at this place within the water, Gajendra had no power to protect himself from the crocodile. So all the wives of Gajendra who were being served by Gajendra so far became sorry. They started crying, and many other elephants who were actually the friends of Gajendra, they could not rescue Gajendra from this crocodile. And Gajendra and crocodile started fighting with each other. They were pulling one another. So Gajendra was just, with all his might, he was just trying to go out of this water. And Gajendra was even pulling the crocodile out of water. And the crocodile with all its might was pulling Gajendra inside water. So they were just pulling one another inside and outside of this water. And in this way the fight continued for 1,000 years. Can you imagine? Now we should not disbelieve these statements. So how can two animals fight for 1,000 years? So this is happening in a different era, at a different plane, right? In the celestial world, in the upper planetary systems, not in the human planetary system. So it can happen. So for 1,000 years they were fighting, and this fight was even observed by great devatas. Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu, Brahma, Shiva, all these great devatas in the higher planets, they were observing what Gajendra is going through. They were seeing the fight, they were watching the fight that's happening between Gajendra and this crocodile. Maybe Gajendra was thinking that, oh, suddenly this crocodile caught me and I can release myself very easily. Or maybe Gajendra was thinking that I am unable to release myself from this crocodile, but after a while crocodile will just leave me, right? So crocodile just will let go of me, let go, and I can just be happy, I can go back. But the nature of problems in this material world is that a problem that comes upon us may not leave us so easily. Right? We may expect, we may think, okay, this problem will not stay forever. Of course, yeah, we should actually have some hopes. We should not become hopeless from one perspective. But despite all our hopes, sometimes the problems are so severe that they may not leave us so easily. So Gajendra must be thinking that, oh, this crocodile will just leave me for a while, leave me after a while. But despite all his efforts and despite all his hopes, the crocodile just will not let go of him. Crocodile did not leave Gajendra. So now this is how Maya works. So the Maya, or the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord Krishna, would not leave us. Sometimes some problem comes upon us, and the problem may persist for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 10 days, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Now this problem of Corona has come. So last year we were thinking that, okay, this lockdown may be there for 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month or 2 months, and again second wave, and like that problems will just continue. Sometimes we don't know, we can't even say how long a problem can continue in this world. Gajendra was fighting for 1,000 full years, 1,000 years. Still, crocodile was not leaving him. So nobody expected that this crocodile would have such great determination to catch the leg of Gajendra for 1,000 full years. So, but the crocodile did not leave, and all the wives of Gajendra and other friends of Gajendra who were standing on the shore of this lake, they were very compassionate on Gajendra. They were pitying Gajendra. They were thinking, oh, this poor Gajendra, our dear elephant, our dear friend, it is caught up by this crocodile. Let us help. They could have endeavored. They would have endeavored, but no use. Gajendra's situation continued, and even Sukadeva Goswami compares the relative situations between Gajendra and this crocodile. So because Gajendra was inside the water, which is not his real living place. So sometimes elephants may go inside water and then take a bath and play for a while and then come out in few minutes. But elephants don't live in water like fish. Now inside water, in a flowing stream, flowing river, a fish can swim in the opposite direction of the flow. But an elephant will just drown in a water body. Because apparently speaking, elephant has a huge body, a fish has a very tiny body, weak body. Okay, but inside the water, a fish can survive, elephant cannot survive. So a person or a living entity may be powerful, but in this material world, the power of a person is not permanent and is not applicable or valid in all circumstances of life at all places. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely powerful since time immemorial for the rest of eternity, at all times, at all places, in all circumstances. But all other ordinary beings cannot exercise their power forever, right? So Gajendra's mental strength, physical strength, and the strength of his senses is getting diminished moment by moment, day by day, month by month, year by year, like this 1,000 years past. And crocodile, because it's a water animal, the mental strength, physical strength, and sensual strength of this crocodile was increasing moment by moment. So crocodile's enthusiasm, physical power, and sensual power were increasing, but Gajendra's powers were decreasing. So Gajendra was in a foreign place. In 1,000 years of fighting without food, Gajendra's bodily strength diminished. His mind became weak. Sometimes when we are physically suffering, our mind also becomes weak. We may lose our moral. Our moral may go down. We may feel very demotivated, depressed, discouraged, devastated because of the difficulty. So the physical difficulty will be transferred to the mind. So the body is undergoing some kind of difficulty, and the mind becomes depressed, right? So Gajendra's situation was like that. So the senses became very less powerful, and for crocodile there is no difficulty, right? It was getting its food, it's in the water, it's getting nourished, right? The mental strength and sensual strength were getting increased in the case of crocodile. So now in this context, Srila Prabhupada writes a brilliant purport. All the devotees who are performing devotional service, who are who are following some spiritual path, who are performing some bhakti yoga, they are actually fighting with Maya, right? So Gajendra is fighting this crocodile, and a struggling sadhaka or a spiritual practitioner is fighting with Maya. So when we are fighting with Maya, we should not be in a position in which our strength, enthusiasm and senses will not be able to fight vigorously. So what does this mean? This means that when we are performing devotional service, so we should keep ourselves in situations where we can comfortably practice the process of bhakti yoga. So what situation is comfortable to one person need not be comfortable to another person, right? So basically devotees have declared a fight against Maya. They declared a war against Maya. So when we are performing bhakti, when we are chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, or when we are studying Srimad Bhagavatam, when we are doing various services to Krishna, so basically we are trying to come out of the influence of Maya. Because of the influence of Maya or the illusion energy of Krishna, the conditioned soul tends to think oneself to be the master, controller, proprietor, enjoyer. But by practicing Bhakti Yoga, one will stop thinking that he is controller, master, proprietor and enjoyer, and one will start thinking that he is a servant of Krishna. I am a servant of Krishna. I am not this body. I am a spirit soul. I am a fragmental part of Krishna. Right? I am a lover of Krishna. Krishna is my supreme father. So I am supposed to be serving. So when we are starting to identify ourselves as servants of God, then we are slowly coming out of the influence of Maya. We are overcoming this influence of Maya. That's the power of Bhakti Yoga. But when we are trying to come out of the influence of Maya, Maya will again try to allure us. Maya tries to distract us from the process of Bhakti Yoga. So it could be sensual distraction or mental distraction or some other kind of difficulty or calamity that Maya places in front of us, so that we cannot focus on our Bhakti Yoga, like that. So while practicing Bhakti Yoga, we have to be focused, we have to protect ourselves, we have to safeguard ourselves from all kinds of distractions that are unfavorable for our progress in spiritual life. Now that's why Rupa Goswami says in Upadeshamrita that Vacho Vegam, Manasaha Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Uduropastha Vegam. There are different kinds of urges that the body feels, right? So if we give too much into the sensual urges, the urge to speak, the urge to eat, the urge to have sensual enjoyment, if we indulge into these urges too much, if we respond to these sensual calls too much, then that could distract us from the process of Bhakti Yoga. Right? Just like the elephant, Gajendra is trying to come out of the water, and the crocodile is trying to pull the elephant inside water. Similarly, the conditioned soul, the practitioner, devotee, also may try to come out of the influence of Maya, but Maya will try to pull that person back into its illusion. So we need to offer prayers to the Lord. My dear Lord, with my own personal strength, I cannot come out of the influence of Maya. Only if you bless me, only if you help me, only when you come and rescue me, I can come out of this Maya. Daivi hiyesha gunamahi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Daivi hiyesha gunamahi mama maya duratyaya. Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that this Maya constitutes three modes. Gunamayi means there are three gunas. There is Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna, mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. They bind the conditioned souls in various ways. To come out of the influence of this Maya, to come out of the influence of these gunas or modes, we have to take shelter of Krishna. Mama Maya Duratyaya. It's very difficult to surpass Maya, but Mameva ye prapadyanti. If you take my shelter, Maya metam tarantiti, one can easily cross over this Maya. So Gajendra tried to protect himself with his own strength for 1,000 years, but he could not protect. But when he took shelter of Krishna, when he offered fervent prayers, as we are going to see a little later, then certainly we can come out of the influence of Maya, right? So the soldiers in Bhakti Yoga must always possess the necessary physical strength and enthusiasm and sensual power to continue to practice Bhakti Yoga. For example, somebody wants to engage in service of Krishna and he wants to work 24 hours, but the body needs some rest. 6-7 hours one has to sleep, and so that the body becomes fresh and rejuvenated, so that they are ready for the next day's devotional services. So we have to, it's our responsibility to possess the necessary physical strength also to practice Bhakti Yoga. If the senses become weak, if you don't eat food, the hands will become weak, my legs will become weak. So if the senses become very weak, we won't be able to practice devotional service. We can focus on the chanting of the holy names. So we have to protect our senses. We have to strengthen our senses by eating proper food. So proper eating, proper sleeping, all these are required. We need to maintain the body. We need to maintain our internal enthusiasm and eagerness to participate in various devotional activities. Unless we consciously put ourselves in favorable circumstances to practice Bhakti Yoga properly, unless we consciously keep ourselves in a company, in an association of Vaishnavas who rejuvenate our enthusiasm to practice Bhakti, we may not be able to progress properly. So one has to keep oneself fit in the practice of Bhakti Yoga. Otherwise, one will become a victim of Maya. And what constitutes a normal condition for one person need not be the same for every person. So for some people, staying in a simple ashram with very minimal facilities is very favorable for their advancement in Bhakti Yoga. But some people, they may need some space, right? They may need certain facilities to practice their devotional service. One may adopt a lifestyle accordingly. For some people, they need some kind of comforts, whether it is physical comforts or some kind of comfort in terms of company and people around, some positive vibes. So in that circumstances, one will be able to perform Bhakti better. So like that, basically we need to keep ourselves in circumstances and surroundings and in companies that keep us enthusiastic in the whole process of Bhakti Yoga, right? So now Gajendra was trying to come out of this water, but Gajendra could not come out. So for one who is not in a strong physical and mental situation, one will not be able to accomplish one's mission or become successful in one's endeavors, right? So now Draupadi, let's take the example of Draupadi in this context. Draupadi also tried to protect herself with her own strength, right? When Dushasana was trying to disrobe Draupadi in public, such a heinous activity Dushasana and Duryodhana were trying to do, and Dhritarashtra was even approving this. Although Bhishma, Drona, Pandavas, so many people were there, nobody could protect Draupadi. When every single force in the entire creation or entire universe fails to protect us, Krishna can protect us. So that's the lesson that we can learn from Draupadi's episode. That's the lesson we can learn from even Gajendra's episode. Gajendra himself tried to protect himself from this crocodile for 1,000 years. and all the elephants who were friends of Gajendra, wives of Gajendra, they were they were unable to protect Gajendra. They were only crying, standing on the shore of the lake. But ultimately, Lord Vishnu came and protected him. So when every power in this entire creation fails to protect us, the supreme power Krishna can come and protect us. So Gajendra has become helpless, but Gajendra did not become hopeless. We could face so many helpless situations, but we should not lose hope. Our ultimate hope is Krishna, Vishnu, the Supreme Lord. So there is always the Supreme Lord who can protect his devotees. So Gajendra became circumstantially helpless and he couldn't save himself. He was afraid of being killed at this point. He thought for a long time, and Gajendra felt that I must take shelter of a person who has the ability to protect me. Okay. Itham Gajendra Sayadapa Sankatam Pranasya Dehi Vivasho Yadruchaya Aparayan Atma Vimokshane Chiram Dadhyam Imam Buddhim Athabhyapadyata. So the shloka says that Gajendra started introspecting that although in the last 1,000 years I could not find anyone to protect me, that does not mean there is no one to protect me. There is someone who has the power to protect me. So whoever is that person, I must take his shelter. Right? So he thought, this is my karma. When he thought in this way, he suddenly got intelligence. Although I am trying to protect myself in various ways, I could not protect. Means I am destined to suffer in this way. Right? So after a considerable thought, Gajendra intelligently arrived at this correct decision to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Such a decision cannot be reached by a sinful person. Only pious people, those who have little sukriti, can make a decision in a dangerous and awkward situation to take shelter of the Lord, to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvidha bhajante mam jana sukritinarjuna arto jignasarartharthi gnani cha bharatarshava. 4 kinds of people take shelter of Krishna. Out of these 4 kinds, artha. Artha means one who is distressed, one who is in some difficulty. Jignasu, one who is very curious. Artharthi, one who needs some money. Gnani, one who is intelligent, a wise person. So these are the 4 categories of people who take shelter of Krishna, right? And there are much pure devotees also. They may not belong to these 4 categories. There are pure devotees who selflessly take shelter of Krishna and who selflessly want to render service to Krishna. But here the point is that although one may not be very pure in one's consciousness, still even in distress also some people may take shelter of Krishna. Now Gajendra is in distress. In distress, Gajendra took shelter of Krishna. So there may be hundreds and thousands and millions of people who are undergoing some distress or difficulty. But how many of them take shelter of Krishna? How many of them seek shelter of God? So people who are undergoing material difficulties may find some material remedies to come out of those difficulties. But how many people actually take shelter of God? How many people get the thought that I have to take shelter of God to come out of this misery? But Gajendra got. So to get an inspiration to seek shelter of Krishna requires some sukriti or some pious credits, right? So Gajendra came out of this awkward situation eventually because Gajendra has taken shelter of Krishna. The only thing that can break us loose from the jaws of this crocodile of Maya is when we totally humble ourselves like Gajendra, realizing that we are completely helpless and we have to surrender. So I am totally helpless, and with all my intelligence and strength and contacts and influence and power, I cannot protect myself. Only Krishna can protect me. When we come to this firm conviction, and in that convinced state of mind, if we take shelter of Krishna, we can come out of calamities. So surrender requires a quality feeling like Gajendra's. So in a materially comfortable situation, one cannot take shelter of Krishna fervently with quality of feeling. One cannot seek shelter of Krishna. But when the situation is not comfortable, it's an uncomfortable situation where we become desperate. In such a desperation, taking shelter of Krishna becomes easy. Thus, from one perspective, if you see, all these calamities, all the difficulties actually give us opportunities to increase our dependence on Krishna. Yes, nobody wants calamities, nobody wants difficulties in their lives. Nobody desires that, oh, I should face so many miseries. Nobody thinks like that. But whatever miseries come on their own, if we learn to take shelter of Krishna in the midst of those miseries, then it's glorious. The misery is glorious because misery becomes an instrument to receive mercy of God, right? If some calamity is inspiring us to take shelter of God, and if some calamity is facilitating to increase our dependence on God, then that calamity is also glorious. Of course, we may not desire calamities like Kunti Maharani. You know, Kunti Maharani in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam offers a prayer. Vipadaha santutaha shashvat tatra tatra jagadguru bhavato darshanam yatsyat apunar bhava darshanam. My dear Lord, I went through so many calamities in my life. Vishan Mahagneha Purushada Darshanat Asatsabhayam Vanavasa Krutshritah Mridhe Mridheneka Maharathastrato Draunyastratascha Hare Bhirakshatu. Vishan, when my son Bhima was very young, he was poisoned. So Bhima was poisoned, Krishna protected him. Vishan Mahagnehe, and the house of Pandavas and Kunti Maharani was set on fire. Krishna protected them from that calamity. Vishan Mahagnehi Purushada, and during their exile period, some great demons like Hidimbasur attacked Bhima and Pandavas, but by Krishna's grace, they were all saved. Vishan Mahagnehi Purushada Darshanat Asat Sabhaya. In that Asat Sabha means an assembly filled with unscrupulous people, right? Unrighteous people, adharmic people. So in that assembly, in that Kuru Sabha, my daughter-in-law Draupadi was insulted. This cruel Dushasan tried to disrobe and insult Draupadi in public in front of so many men. Such a heinous activity he has done. But Krishna came and protected Draupadi by providing unlimited sari to protect her honor. Okay. So Vishan Mahagneha Purushada Darshanat Asat Sabhaya Vanavasa Krishratah, and the property of Pandavas was taken away by this Duryodhan, Dushasan, Karna, Shakuni, by cheating them in a gambling match. And they were sent to exile. They were sent to live in forest for 13 years. And for these 13 years, they underwent a lot of difficulties, and Krishna repeatedly came and protected the Pandavas because they were surrendered devotees, right? So Kunti Maharani started recollecting all these incidents in her life and in the life of her sons, the Pandavas, and she said that, my dear Lord, whenever we face a calamity or difficulty, you were there to protect us. So calamity has been giving us opportunities to have your darshan. So let those calamities come again and again, right? So that's why she says, Vipadaha santutaha shashvat tatra tatra jagadguru bhavato darshanam yatsyat apunar bhava darshanam. Let all the calamities come again and again. Let my son Bhima be poisoned again. Let our house be set on fire again. Let my daughter-in-law be insulted again. Let us be sent to, may we be sent to Vanavas or exile again. No problem. All these problems are actually giving us an opportunity to take your shelter. Bhavato darshanam yasyat apunar bhava darshanam. If you take your shelter, if you take darshan of your lordship in calamities, there is no need to take darshan of this material existence anymore. So to helplessly take shelter of Krishna is the natural position of every soul. So if a difficulty, if a calamity is giving us that opportunity to completely depend on Krishna in a helpless state of mind, that opportunity is glorious, that calamity is glorious. So far Gajendra was absorbed in his identity of being an animal. So far Gajendra was thinking that he is the controller and he is the king of all this entire forest and all the animals in the forest. But now Gajendra started realizing that I am not the controller, I am not the master, I am not the proprietor, I am not the enjoyer. I don't have the ability, I don't have the power to protect myself. So Gajendra realized that I am not the controller. So it's worth undergoing this 1,000 years of suffering to come to this realization that I am not the controller, Krishna is the controller, and I must take shelter of Krishna. That's why we should not be too bewildered. We should not be so discouraged or depressed or devastated when some difficulty comes in our lives. We should increase our dependence on God, dependence on Krishna. Yes, this difficulty is there. Sometimes it's very unbearable. It's very intolerable. But can we do something about it? If we can do, we should do with all our might, with all our intelligence, with all our uh, with all our resources. We should try to come out of these difficulties. But despite putting all our efforts to save ourselves, if we are unable to save ourselves, we need to understand the only savior is Krishna. So, for example, Kunti, Krishna's mother Devaki, was being attacked by Kamsa. As soon as Kamsa heard that Devaki's 8th child is going to kill you, Kamsa gave up his affection for his dear sister and he picked up his sword to behead Devaki immediately on the spot. But Vasudeva did not think that, oh, it's will of providence, I cannot do much. This calamity gives me an opportunity to remember Krishna, let me remember Krishna. He did not say all that. He tried his best to save the life of Devaki. He tried to convince Kamsa by presenting a lot of philosophy. So after endeavoring so much, cruel Kamsa did not agree to what Vasudeva said. So what did Vasudeva do? Finally he said that I will give my children to you. Whenever Devaki gives birth to a child, I will submit that child to you, you do whatever you want. So the Akashvani did not say that Devaki is going to kill you. Why are you killing her? Today is her marriage day. She is a woman and she is your sister. And you are a great warrior, a Kshatriya. It doesn't befit you. It's not proper for you to kill a simple innocent woman and your sister on her marriage day. So you have heard that her children are going to kill you. Her 8th child is going to kill you. What to speak of 8th child? I will give every child, every son that we get, I will submit that child to you. So in this way, Vasudeva tried to protect Devaki. So similarly, we also should try our best to come out of a calamity. But despite using all our efforts, if we are unable to save ourselves from certain difficulties, we should take shelter of Krishna, right? And even when we are endeavoring on our own efforts to protect ourselves from calamities also, we should be conscious that even if I am able to protect myself from this calamity, the ability is actually given by Krishna. Without Krishna's sanction, without Krishna's God-given intelligence, I cannot protect. Okay, then also we should be grateful to Krishna. Okay, so now Gajendra started thinking that other elephants could not rescue me, my wives could not rescue me, and it is the will of Providence. I will just take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so Gajendra just came to this realization and started offering prayers to the Lord. So fervent prayers. So those prayers are very sweet and devotional, informative, philosophical, and actually hope giving to us. because several qualities of the Supreme Lord are described by Gajendra in those prayers, and those qualities actually help us intensify our mood of devotion towards Krishna. So let us discuss all those prayers in the tomorrow's session. And today I gave a quick summary of the second chapter of the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and tomorrow we will try to see a major portion of the third chapter of this 8th canto, where Gajendra's prayers are there, and if some prayers are left, then we can take on the third day and we will complete the next chapter about Gajendra's past life also on the third day. Thank you all very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.